the only reason why I was able to live a life where I traveled so much and picked up and left and did the things that I wanted to do, which I was too anxious to do before, was because I actually started living in accordance to feelings-based living. I started looking at how I wanted to feel and sitting with my emotions so that I could pick up and do the things that I needed to do. I never thought that I would be able to fly to Italy alone, especially not in 2 flights. Like, I hated flying. But I looked at how I wanted to feel. I looked at what my goals were, and I worked on aligning my actions with my feelings. And this is a guide to do that. Hello, beautiful soul. Today, I want to talk about something requested. Hello, beautiful soul. Today, I want to talk about something that was actually requested, and that is all the travels that I did in 2024. If you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, you know that it was like a travel year for me. I went to, I don't even know how many countries. It wasn't like a crazy amount, but it was definitely more than a normal amount. So today I'm going to give you month by month what I did in 2024 as a little travel recap and talk about why I traveled so much, because this might be a little bit about why. This is the Mini Amira Show, and I am your host, Amira Sookram, the author of Feelings-Based Living. On this show, we talk about all different kinds of things, about emotional wellness, spirituality, and today, apparently, travel, which might be tied, at least astrologically, to higher philosophies. If you're liking the show, please subscribe, like it, leave a comment, and tell me which of these countries you would go to. All right, first off, I have launched officially Feelings-Based Living. It came out January 21st, 2025. If you're watching this in the future, if you're watching this now, it came out this week. So I have spent, let's see, in December 2023, in December 2022, I started outlining the first version of this, and it was supposed to be a book for highly sensitive people called Sensitive Souls. That's what it started as, and I started writing the first chapter and outlined it, and then I was like, okay, I'll start writing when inspiration hits me, which it did not. And then in September 2023 was when I actually was traveling right before. I went to New York City for a wedding and then saw Carol G at MetLife Arena. And then I came home and I was like, when I come home, I will start writing. And I outlined the book, I think in August, maybe that year. And then as soon as I got home, like I don't even know if I waited a day. Maybe I waited one day of rest after my travels, but the next day, right away, got started writing this, and that was the first draft of Feelings-Based Living. It was actually not called Feelings-Based Living. I don't even remember what I wrote down for the title, and I didn't have a subtitle for the book until the entire thing was edited and done. This is Feelings-Based Living. It took me from September 2023 of writing all the way until, let's say I wrote until August 2024, or maybe I was editing in August 2024. And then I traveled right after I was done, came back, had to work on all the last minute, like marketing, self-publishing, putting it together, extra edits, up until probably 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago, I was editing this. And now it is a book that you can hold in your hands or grab on Kindle or Kobo. So Amazon, Kindle, or Kobo, you can get Feelings-Based Living. Now, let's get started. So at the end of January 2024, I was finishing the first draft, and I finished it right before I got on a flight and went to Saint Martin. SXM. So Saint Martin is the Dutch side of, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce these differently because I don't have a Dutch or French accent, But there is the Dutch side of Saint Martin, and then there's the French side. So it's 2 countries on 1 island. So I went to both sides. I stayed on the Dutch side, and then I went to the French side, and I also took a ferry to Anguilla. So on the Dutch side, one of my favorite things, obviously, was eating Johnny cakes every single day. And that was before I went gluten-free, and I probably shouldn't have been eating that much gluten right before I went gluten-free, but I had Johnny cakes every single day. So Johnny cakes with egg inside, with cheese inside, so good. And then the French side, obviously the best part of the French side was the food. There was such a like Caribbean fusion of food there that was like Caribbean, European, and it was incredible. Like the food was the best part of Saint Martin, and one of my cousins went there as well, and we both say we like dream of the food there. It was so good. For Anguilla, I actually just took a ferry over for like 3 or 4 hours. It was just the idea that I didn't know when I would be there again. And so it was easy to just like hop over because it was like a 30-minute ferry. So I just like hopped over, went there, went to, I would say it's the most beautiful beach I've ever been to. I don't like, my favorite place in terms of blue waters, always Bermuda. Like Bermuda has a special place in my heart. I went for like 3 or 4 days, but it was so beautiful. But Anguilla's beach was incredible. Like the best beach I have ever been to. All right, so that was January. In February, I stayed home, which was deserved. I had actually a skin infection, which I took antibiotics for. And after that, I developed candida and had a rash or an allergic reaction all over my body. And so that month I did a candida cleanse, and I was actually cleansing while starting to write draft 2 of my book. And that was extremely hard. It was hard to change my whole diet and my life at that point. I shouldn't say my life, my diet mainly, which food was my life. Like I was starting to develop a healthy relationship to food and like being able to eat more after being a really picky eater. And then all of a sudden it was like all of these things that you can now eat, you also can't for your health. So that was a big change. And then in March, I went to Buffalo for, again, a few hours to celebrate my cousin's 30th birthday. And then I hopped back over to Toronto. April, stayed home, but I saw Bad Bunny at the beginning of the year, which was so good. So April was Bad Bunny, celebrating parents' birthdays. They are both Aries. And then I was planning for my May trip. In May, I went to Nova Scotia with my mom. It was a bit of a birthday gift / we went for Mother's Day, so it was really nice that both of those things worked out together. And it was an unexpectedly incredible trip. Like, I don't know how my timing worked out so perfectly for this trip, and she will remember it for the rest of her life. And she said that, like, I was very lucky for all of this to happen at such a young age because she waited so long for this moment. So before I get into that, we actually didn't stay in Halifax. We just drove, I think, like a little bit in Halifax. We actually got a parking ticket the first day, but we fought it and we got out of it. And we went and ate lobster the first day. Then we drove to Halls Harbor. So that's actually where we stayed, which is right on the Bay of Fundy, but it's not on like the Bay of Fundy side that you would see all the pictures from, but it was on the other side. What was great about this is that we got to face north. And then we went and visited like Wolfville. So I got to try out fresh ciders, which was really delicious, and also got to see like Acadia University. We just drove by, but like the area was so cool to see. And like that type of vibe is exactly what I would love in a trip. Like I love that small, like cozy town vibe, but there's also like a strip of like cute stores that you can visit, and like, you know, it's very chill. That is my ideal for a trip. We also went on a extremely long hike, which is probably not that extreme, but for us it was. Like, I've never been on a hike longer than maybe 2.5 hours, and we went on a 4-hour hike where we hardly stopped the entire time. We were just like walking, hiking, and it was like uphill, downhill, the entire time. Our feet were killing us because we both had hiking boots on, but it was like 7 degrees and we had to have like big socks on as well. But then obviously we went back. We're facing north. In Halls Harbor, we were extremely lucky. And what coincided with Mother's Day and her trip was that we got to see the Northern Lights. I talk about this more on my Instagram, so if you want to go find that post, you totally can. But I read the book Wintering, and she talked about how you have to like chase the lights. So I knew that I had to go looking for her, which I'll call the lights her. So at first, we just didn't see anything. We went out with our cameras, and I'm sitting there trying to take it like a long exposure photo, and eventually like I take this photo and I'm like, oh, it's green. It's green. That's it. Like, those are the lights, which was very exciting in itself. And then we like drove back to the place we were staying at, and my mom's like, let's just drive down the street since there's no light pollution here. We drove down the street. It was so cold. Like, I was shaking, freezing, trying to take photos, and we got down the street and she was there. She was there. She was not just green. She was pink. She was gorgeous, and she was dancing. Like, the fact that I got to see her dance, I think was like the moment where I was like, I have done something in life where I never thought I would get to do it at this age, and maybe I thought that I would see like the Toronto version of it, but no, I got to see like her in her glory. Maybe not like right above me, but she was dancing in the sky and like taking up the whole sky. It was beautiful. So that was Nova Scotia. Oh, I also went to Peggy's Cove in Nova Scotia. So before we took our flight back, we drove through, we saw it, we got lobster rolls, the gluten I shouldn't have eaten, and then we hopped on our flight and we came back. So the one thing about me is that I like to stay in Toronto for the summer. It has always been a thing. I think I put my money towards Caravana, but also I just think there's so much to do in Toronto in the summer that it doesn't really make sense for me to go elsewhere. However, I had to travel. So if you have been reading my newsletters or just following along on YouTube, highly recommend you do check out the newsletters. You get the most in-depth energy reading that I put out anywhere will be there or in my membership. So one of my cousins passed away. It was very unexpected, and so I had to go to Georgia, Atlanta, fly to Atlanta to go to the funeral. So we couldn't find direct flights that weren't extremely expensive, so we drove to Detroit. From Detroit, flew to Atlanta, and then went in Georgia to the funeral. I was there for like 2 nights, I think, and then came back. So I got to do Detroit as well. Didn't really get to do Atlanta. In Detroit, though, all I did was go to Shake Shack. It's actually a cool city. Like, I don't know, I kind of liked it. I haven't been to Detroit since I was a child, so it was kind of cool to see again. As I said, July, August, I'm at home. August is my Caravana time. That is my vacation within Toronto. So I did play mass this year. It was a small group of us, but it was really nice to play together. And I definitely had a lot of fun on the road. So in September, I finished writing Feelings-Based Living. I was done the editing. I finished the manuscript, essentially. And I sent it out to beta readers to give feedback, to read it, to let me know if there were any errors, anything I needed to change. They were the ones that suggested putting images throughout the book. And so I did that. I actually hand wrote them. So I went to Barbados after, and my trip was so interesting. I crashed so hard. I was actually sick in the middle of my trip. I had a fever, well, a mild fever, and I was just exhausted. But it's better to be sick, and I said this to my mom earlier in the year, it's better to be sick somewhere tropical than at home. So I went to Barbados. I ate amazing food. Like, I loved the food there too. Their coleslaw, like, I will dream of A1's coleslaw. Like, it's so good. I don't know. I had one bite of it and I was expecting to like not even finish the container. They had to go out and buy me another because I loved it. It was an interesting time to visit the island because nothing was going on. Restaurants were like closed. It was like this dead period on the island where nothing happened. But it was incredible. I got to meet one of my best friend's parents who are living there. I also got to meet Simone the Moon Goddess, who is like my favorite tarot reader. She's Bayesian, so I went and I just met people. It didn't feel as much of like a touristy trip for me, and I think whenever I go to Barbados, it just feels like I like being there and I don't necessarily need to do all the touristy things. But I did visit like beaches when I was there. And yeah, I got to explore a little bit. I love Art Splash Cafe when I was there. I got tacos from there twice. I stayed at the Crane. We got smoothies from Sun Life right outside the Crane, which their smoothies with sea moss, so good. I did oysters on Friday, of course. We saw Spider-Man do like a flip on stage. It was very, very random. And then I headed home. So I had a period of being sick, but I still did things, and that was my week in Barbados. And when I came home, that was about getting this all put together. But that was not the end of it. After my birthday, at the end of October, I went to Italy. I went to northern Italy. I have always wanted to see cities there. The first day was a 25-hour travel day. Like, I got to the airport in Toronto early. My flight was delayed. I flew to Montreal. From Montreal, my flight was on time, thank God. And then I went to Venice on the day of like some sort of transit strike in Italy. And so to get to Milan, oh, also not only a transit strike, it was like raining very heavily in Italy and like flooding. When I landed, I was like, I look like I traveled nowhere. The skies are just as gray as Toronto, but at least I'm in a new country, right? So I had to take a train from Venice to Milan, and it was the craziest, hectic train ride of my life, but I was also exhausted from traveling because I couldn't really sleep on the flight, but I can sleep on trains. So I was like passing in and out and just like holding my bag close to me so that no one would like take it, and I was like just trying to get there, but it took so long. I think I feel bad for anyone who saw me on this train because I feel like I look dead, but that's okay. I made it to Milan. All right, from Milan, the next day I woke up, I went to Lake Como. It was raining when I got there. I stayed for like 15-20 minutes before moving my train up again. And I think I was there like an hour and a half. Like, I just, Lake Como, like Como where you get off the train and just go there, wasn't my vibe. And I'm sure the rest of Lake Como and like in the summer is very beautiful. But my experience of Como was not it. And I have no desire to like go back there. So that was Como for me. The rest of the day in Milan that day was pouring rain. So I just like slept on and off. My sleep when I was in Italy was wild. Like, I wasn't sleeping on Toronto's schedule and I wasn't sleeping on an Italian schedule. I was just like randomly sleeping, and I couldn't sleep like through the night. So I would just like sleep for a few hours at a time. It was really crazy. But finally the rain cleared and I did get a whole afternoon in Milan to explore, and it was stunning. It was stunning. I'm just gonna put some photos. Like, I don't even know how to explain. Like, walking around Milan, I went for the architecture. I went to see the Duomo. Like, it was so beautiful and unexpectedly so. Like, you look at it and you're just like mesmerized. From Milan, I took a train to Sirmione. Sirmione. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. But that is on Lake Garda. This was so beautiful. Like, I got an Airbnb where I opened my window and I was looking out at a castle on the water. It was so beautiful. I can't even describe what it felt like to just walk around the streets there. Also, by the way, this was my first solo trip, and this is something I really wanted to do before I turned 30, was go back to Italy solo. I also thought I would be eating a lot of truffle when I was there, and I actually ate more saffron. So I had a saffron pizza with white onions on it, and it was so good. I loved it. I loved it. I also had in Milan like saffron risotto. Amazing. And I ate gluten there. I don't think that I fully I don't think it was fully great for me, but it wasn't impacting me as much as North American gluten, so I survived. In November, I did a staycation in Toronto. So for a week, I went and stayed downtown Toronto and just stayed in the annex, drank coffee, ate gluten-free sandwiches, so good. And it was just nice to be downtown Toronto for a week. All right, last one. I went back to Barbados in December for 13 days, almost 2 weeks, with one of my friends, and I had like people to stay with, so I went for 2 weeks almost, and I just enjoyed being there. I ate fresh food, I had fish, I chilled with my friend's parents, and I just went to beaches as much as I could, but mainly I was just working and unwinding from this. I was finished everything, and I actually self-published this while I was in Barbados. And then I played a lot of video games. I started playing with my Nintendo Switch again. I thought it would be really helpful to like have it while I travel, just as a way to unwind. And then also playing games, I think, is something that I haven't done enough in the past few years. Something that I used to always do when I was in school is not play games because it took me away from studying. And then always in my time off, I would just binge play Sims. But I haven't been a Sims girly lately, so I started playing Animal Crossing again, and I started playing Hogwarts Legacy, and I was just enjoying relaxing, shutting my brain off. Well, kind of shutting my brain off. Hogwarts Legacy does use my brain, but I enjoyed playing games. So a lot of my time in Barbados was spent in the heat, relaxing. I worked a little bit. That was my one trip I brought my laptop for. Worked a bit and yeah, published this. So the reason I traveled so much in 2024, though it was unintentional, I wasn't expecting it. I wanted to travel a lot in my mid-20s. I turned 25 in 2020, I think. And that was like the worst time ever to travel, obviously. And I didn't get to do my crazy like travel experiences of like every year I'm gonna go to a different European country or like just go see the Caribbean. And I hadn't been to the Caribbean from 2016 to 2023. So I really just needed that. I really wanted to go back to Italy. I didn't have the time. I didn't feel safe to travel, so I needed that. So I traveled a lot of places this year. I got to see new countries. I got to go back to countries I've been to before, and it was amazing. And I think one of the biggest reasons, not that I was doing it intentionally at the time, but by the time it was like September and I was going to Barbados and had Italy planned, I realized that I burnt out so badly after I wrote my first book. I was hardly able to market it. I felt drained. I lost sight of marketing, and I lost sight of sharing what Guilt-Free Goals was about, and I didn't want to do that again. So I put in so much time to give back to myself through traveling, and it was exhausting in itself, but it was fulfilling. And when you're working on something big, like a big project, like writing an entire book, you need to pour back into yourself. And that was my way of doing it. I was doing this act of love, this act of writing, for other people to sit down and read. And I needed to do something for myself too. So traveling was a big way that I put in rest times after every big step of the way. I don't know where I'm gonna go next, but my feelings of the year are to feel comfort and supported. And traveling is not necessarily one of my goals this year. I do want to go somewhere for my birthday, which is the plan, but I am focused on other things. And mainly, I am focused on building my foundations back through yoga, through reading, through daily planning, including daily gratitude. And so this year, I want to focus less on being busy and running from the things I need to sit with, and just sit and be still and be with myself. That might mean some traveling, but mostly it means coming back home to my roots, which is yoga. So thank you so much for being here and listening to my 2024 travel recap. I will be taking a break from YouTube so that I can focus on doing an audiobook for feelings-based living. And my voice just can't handle doing both in a week, so I want to take a break to do that. So that is it. But please go grab a copy of Feelings-Based Living. It is my soul's work. It's a way for you to be more empathetic with yourselves. It's a way for you to be more empathetic with other people. And hopefully, we can grow more empathetic and grow empathy, like we're planting the seeds of empathy in the world. That's what feelings-based living is here for. Though, you're not going to get all of that in this book. What you're going to get is your work with you. Sitting with your feelings, understanding how to process them, how to name them, how to understand them, how to embrace them. That's feelings-based living. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful for you. Much love to you. Bye.